think of it.
Hereby call to order the Roseville City Council meeting for Monday, January 29th, 2024. Can everybody hear me okay? All right. Sometimes I can't tell if the PA is working in the room, but good to hear. Good to know. Mr. Trudgeon, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Etten.
Here.
Councilmember Groff.
Here.
Councilmember Strawn.
Here.
Councilmember Schroeder. Mayor Rowe.
Here. And Councilmember Schroeder indicated ahead of the meeting that she was not able to attend this evening, so that is an excused absence. Want to make sure everybody who has a cell phone either turns it off or otherwise assures that it doesn't upset the meeting here. And just note for people in the public that if you do need a copy of meeting materials, there is one public copy of all of the meeting materials in a binder in the back table under the clock. We also have individual copies of the agenda available that folks can use for your personal use if you need. Should be enough copies to go around, hopefully. And we will provide opportunities for public comment during the course of the meeting, and I'll give you more about that as we get to that point. But I think that covers some of the housekeeping. Oh, we should introduce the other folks at the table here with us. We've got our City Attorney, Rachel Tierney, who's on my right at the end, and City Manager Pat Trudgeon, who's on my left at the other end. And we'll also have a number of staff, department heads, and guests who will be participating in the meeting, and we'll introduce those folks as they come into the meeting. With that, we'll ask folks to stand if you're able for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first business item on our agenda this evening is to approve tonight's agenda, and I'll check with staff. Are there any changes that need to be made from a staff perspective this evening?
Mr. Mayor, we don't have any changes by staff.
All right. I'll check with the council on consent items or other changes to the agenda. Are there any consent items that council members would like removed for separate consideration this evening? Any changes to the agenda from council members? Councilmember Atten?
I would like to have the council consider an addition to make a motion to add an item for tonight's agenda to discuss the posting of open positions for and interviewing for the Human Rights Inclusion and Engagement Commission.
Is that your motion to add that to the agenda?
That is my motion.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to add an agenda item, which I'm presuming will be 7M
I think
under
so.
our business items, to discuss the appointment, advertisement, and interview process for the Human Rights Inclusion and Engagement Commission. All right, with that, we've got a motion to amend the agenda as such, made by Councilmember Atten, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Any discussion on the motion to amend the agenda?
I could have a long discussion.
All right.
Do we want a long discussion?
Brief point in support of the motion.
A brief point. I think that there are a lot of concerns with how the commission is operating right now, and I think it would be important for us to press the pause button on adding new members until we figure that out.
Right. So that's the purpose of adding the
Yes.
item to the agenda this evening, to have that conversation.
Yes.
Right. Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion to add that item to the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes unanimously 4-0. That item is added. Then do we have a motion on the overall agenda?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Etten, to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and we have our agenda this evening. Next on our agenda is our first opportunity for public comment. This is a chance for members of the public to speak to items that are not on this evening's agenda, but may be of interest to people in the community or related to city business that we're not taking up this evening. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak, as I said, on non-agenda items. At the beginning of the meeting, we will provide opportunity for public comment as various agenda items come up during the rest of the meeting. Is anyone here to speak this evening on general business not on tonight's agenda? Right, doesn't appear to be the case. So we'll move on then from our general public comment and move to our next items on the agenda, first of which is recognitions and donations. We have a couple of proclamations this evening, and I will read each one in turn, and then a motion to approve would be in order. The first proclamation is related to Black History Month in Roseville, and it reads as follows. Whereas the City of Roseville is committed to recognizing and honoring the contributions of all members of our community, And whereas Negro History Week was established in 1926 by Dr. Carter Godwin Woodson as a way to neutralize the deliberate distortion of Black history, and whereas this movement grew over the years to Black History Month to give an objective and scholarly balance in American and world history, and whereas the month of February was selected as Black History Month because it marks the birth of Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois, Langston Hughes, and Abraham Lincoln, all leaders whose actions greatly impacted the lives of Black Americans. And whereas the contributions of African Americans made and continue to make, the contributions that African Americans have made and continue to make in building our nation's infrastructure and economic strength, as well as our history, music, arts, national defense from the Revolutionary War to the present-day military operations, written words and discoveries and inventions are often overlooked. And whereas on January 1st, 1863, the Emancipation Proclamation set the United States on the path to ending slavery, on August 28, 1963, hundreds of thousands of Americans of all backgrounds joined the March on Washington, which was led by the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, James Framer, the Congress of Racial Equity, John Lewis, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, A. Philip Randolph, the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, Roy Wilkins, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, Whitney Young, and the National Urban League in pursuit of jobs, justice, and freedom, to the memorial to Abraham Lincoln, the author of the Emancipation Proclamation, in pursuit of freedom and freedom and equality for all. And whereas, despite all the progress, the legacy of slavery and segregation still persists in our nation in the forms of mass incarceration, the school-to-prison pipeline, racial profiling, educational inequalities, housing and employment discrimination, racism, and bias. And whereas in 2024, Black History Month honors the theme of African Americans and the arts, and whereas the City of Roseville invites all members of the community to renew their commitment to inclusion, racial equality, justice, creating a community where all belong, and to participate in activities designed to advance the cause of freedom and equality for all. Now, therefore, be resolved, the City of Roseville hereby declare February 2024 to be Black History Month.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Councilmember Ratten, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Discussion on that motion to approve that proclamation?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. That proclamation is approved. That then brings us to the second proclamation this evening, and that is in relation to the Optimists in Roseville. It's the Optimist Day proclamation and reads as follows. Whereas the Roseville Optimist Club was chartered in January 2017 and has a 7-year track record. And whereas the Roseville Optimist Club's mission is to bring out the best in our youth, community, and ourselves by providing hope and a positive vision. And whereas the Roseville Optimist Club has grown to be a highly successful community organization numbering over 100 members and provides a number of programs and projects to fulfill its mission. And whereas the Roseville Optimist Club has initiated 2 important long-term programs, the Character Education and Development Initiative and the Civic Education and Engagement Program. And whereas the Roseville Optimist Club's vision is to continue to grow in size, service, and stature. And whereas the first Thursday of February is recognized and celebrated as Optimist Day in the Optimist International Organization of over 2,000 Optimist local clubs, now therefore be it resolved, the City of Roseville declares February 1st, 2024 to be Optimist Day in the City of Roseville.
So moved.
Second.
It's moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting that proclamation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that proclamation is also approved. That then brings us to our business items this evening, and we've got a number of items. The first of which, to get us off to a good start, is a presentation from our Metropolitan Council representative here in District 10, which is Peter Lindstrom, former mayor of Falcon Heights, so he kind of knows what we're doing here this evening. And we look forward to hearing from Mr. Lindstrom on an update on activities at the Met Council.
Thank you very much, Mayor, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Michael Sund from the Met Council.
And you
As
can
well.
have a seat and relax.
I
if you'd
will.
like
I
to.
actually
Okay.
have some props that
okay.
I wanted to toss around here. This is wastewater, treated wastewater, treated wastewater.
Wayne, why don't you
You
have
want me to
that one?
drink that?
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fight you over that
Funny
one,
you
Wayne.
said, you want me to
Do that
drink
over
that?
here.
Because one of the last council meetings that I attended in a different city, a council member said, "God, it looks like gin."
Yeah.
I would not recommend mixing that with tonic.
It does say do not open or drink,
Yeah,
right
do
on the
not
bottle.
open or drink.
Good you told Jason that.
So thank you very much for having me, all the way from the.
So there might be a few ounces of Roseville water in there, maybe.
You know what? I pretty much guarantee it. I'll say, so I'm the chair of the Environment Committee for Met Council, and we have the purview of our wastewater treatment plants. We have 9 wastewater treatment plants. We treat about 250 million gallons every single day of wastewater, 250 million gallons. So all of the Roseville wastewater from the homes and industry flows to our Metro plant, which is just off of downtown St. Paul. That handles 100 million gallons of wastewater every single day. And I'll tell you, what I want to cover in the next just few minutes is just some of those interactions between the Met Council and cities. And wastewater is really a big one. You have sewers. Your sewers lead into our interceptor sewers, the Met Council interceptor sewers. You likely have hundreds of miles of sewers. We have 600 miles of these big interceptor sewers that lead to, in this case, the Metro plant off of downtown St. Paul. And each month, Pat, we send you a bill for about $250,000 or so monthly, about $3 million a year. That's our wholesale rate. You then tack on, I'm guessing you tack on a bit to charge your homeowners, your residents that you use to take care of your own infrastructure. And so that's one big key link between the Met Council and the city of Roseville. The other big buckets that we work in are transit and transportation planning, comprehensive planning, so we are the region's planning entity, and we create a regional plan, which Mayor Rowe, thank you, Mayor Rowe serves on our Land Use Advisory Committee, which has a big role to play in our region's comprehensive plan. And this Land Use Advisory Committee helps shape the comprehensive plans, or what is asked in the comprehensive plans across our region. So thank you for your service there. So it's environmental services, it's transit, it's transportation planning, it's overall regional planning, and then we're the largest HRA in the state, largest HRA. So we have right around 7,500 vouchers, and federal vouchers that we administer for our region.
I just want to pause there. Are you working from a PowerPoint presentation that we should be seeing on the screen
I
right
am,
now?
yeah, sort of.
There we go. I think
I'm already going off the cuff here.
our control
Just
room was
running.
looking for it, and they had the overhead camera, which is showing your
I
hands
know,
in
it's
front
my
of you. which I wanted
ginormous
to make
hands.
sure, yeah.
Oh, man.
So I just wanted to make sure we were on the
Should have
right
clipped
page
my
here.
fingernails a little closer.
No, that's right. So sorry about that.
Yeah,
I
no
didn't
problem.
mean to interrupt. You were
No
talking about
problem.
the Met Council's HRA.
Yeah, we're the largest HRA, so about 7,500 vouchers for our region. So we are the HRA for a good part of the Twin Cities. And then last but not least, the other big bucket that we work in is partnering with our 10 parks agencies. So think Ramsey County Parks, Three River Parks, Minneapolis Parks and Recreation Board, partnering with those agencies to help fund them as well as for planning for those agencies. So those are kind of the big buckets. If we go to the next, scroll down. One area that Roseville is exceeding in is a couple of things. One, in the community development area of the council, we have what are called livable community grants. And the city has received, I think, like 4 livable community grants in the last 5 years. It's one of the highest number of grants that we've given out to any particular city. So kudos for you. One has gone to your really innovative housing partnership, the Land Trust Partnership. We were proud to allocate $300,000 for that great project, as well as you can see on the screen the 3 other senior housing projects, Twin Lakes and Owasso Gardens. So I wanted to give you kudos for those projects, moving those forward. And then also, one night I gave a heads up to Pat and the mayor maybe a month ago that we've got a new round of I&I grants. And the city's been very successful in applying for inflow and infiltration grants. These are grants that help prevent inflow and infiltration, which you may be familiar with. This is water that is getting into our wastewater system. Those sewers that I mentioned or manhole covers are great sources for clean water to get into our sewer system. And it is expensive to treat this water. And so we don't want to be in the business of treating water that is already clean. And so the more that you can do or to continue your work with reducing inflow and infiltration, that's better for your homeowners as well as your businesses for keeping those rates in check. So we appreciate the work that you've already done and the work that you'll be doing in the future. Another grant program that you've successfully applied for is one that I hear continually is one of the more popular grant programs, and that's a water efficiency grant program. And this is funds that we get from the legislature, both the I&I grants and the water efficiency grant program. We get from the legislature and then we allocate out to cities. This one in particular goes for things like water efficient appliances, goes for things like smart irrigation systems. I think we all have the experience of, in the summer it's raining out and you drive by and there's an irrigation system that's spraying out water while it's raining. And you're like, what in the world? We got to do better. And so there's these smart irrigation systems that know that it is raining or that it just rained a lot and you don't need to water the lawn. And so we have these grant programs that you have successfully applied for and we just got another round from the legislature. So crossing my fingers that you apply for that again successfully. Also, we just got funds from the legislature for private I&I. I like to think of sewers as like a 3-legged stool. The private sector, the city, and the Met Council. So you have the private sector with residences and businesses, and they have their pipe that goes from inside their business and inside their home to the city sewer to the Met Council sewers to the wastewater treatment plants. And so cities for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, they've really tackled their I&I. And we've made great strides there, but there's still this private sector I&I that needs to be addressed. And some of these pipes have been in there for decades, right? And so the legislature recognized this and created this private sector I&I system grants, and we'll be opening that up this year as well. So I encourage you to be thinking about that grant program. I want to touch on transit. Rosedale, the transit center, one of the most popular. I don't quote me on this, but I think it might be number 2. second highest in terms of ridership. Maybe Mall of America, number one, Roseville, number two, I think. So you can see the usage. This is from 2022, so in the height of COVID. So we're seeing transit ridership bounce back pretty strongly in the last year and a half, and you can see Rosedale Transit Center very popular, as well as some as well as the A line on County Road B, a top spot as well. And I'll say the A line, since that rolled out in 2016, very popular. I mean, every time we roll out a new bus rapid transit, we see ridership go up about 30%. And even through COVID, the BRT lines were some of the most resilient lines that we have. And I'm pleased to say, you're aware of the new bus rapid transit line that's coming down the pike, the G line on Rice Avenue, Rice Street, and that'll run from the Little Canada Transit Station just a hair north of County Road C, down Rice to downtown St. Paul, and then eventually into Dakota County. And so I'm super excited about that. That'll be under construction 2026, 2027 timeline, operating 2027, hopefully. And then that'll match up to the Green Line, that'll match up to all the routes in downtown St. Paul, and that'll also match up to another new bus rapid transit line, which is the H line, which goes parallel, goes east-west on Como Avenue primarily. So to get into downtown Minneapolis, downtown St. Paul, it'll be easier for Roseville residents. Made even easier by another hopefully exciting project that I'm crossing my fingers Roseville will see here even this year, and that is for about a year or so, maybe a little bit longer, we've had what's called microtransit, a pilot project, a microtransit pilot project in North Minneapolis. Think of this as like transit, like Lyft and Uber for transit, where you can, with your app, call for a bus, a small bus, to pick you up in North Minneapolis at this address at this time. And it's been very successful. The pilot project has been very successful. You can then take that bus and then link up to light rail transit or a bus rapid transit and only pay one fare. So it's seamless across the entire transit operations. And we are looking to expand this microtransit service outside the core. And we have eight different possibilities that we're looking at. Just had a meeting on this the other day, and they said Roseville is at or near the top of the next pilot location. And so I'm crossing my fingers that comes through. No guarantees, can't guarantee it here today, but we're looking at it seriously. And that means, and we're not sure yet if this is all of Roseville, if it will just be Roseville and not Falcon Heights or not parts of Shoreview or Little Canada, or what exactly it looks like. But essentially, it would be fantastic for someone, say if you could back up to where the map is, say someone in that northeast part of town where there's less access to regular routes. If that person there could call for a microtransit, who then could drive them when they want to the transit station, and then they could get the A line and they're off and running to the airport or wherever they need to go. That would be a great service for the community. With that, so stay tuned on that. I think that's all I've got from me. I handed out my business cards. I know we've known each other for years and years. Wayne Groff, you're welcome to live in the city of Falcon Heights again. The doors are always open for you.
Now, if you want to stay a Roseville council.
Not if you want to stay a Roseville council member. But happy to answer any questions or just keep in touch.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Are there questions from the council? Councilmember Strawn?
I would love to find out more about this microtransit. Where would it be a good place to find out how someone could access it, pricing, things like that?
Yeah, great question. So we do have a lot of information about microtransit on the Met Council's website. And that would be information about the pilot project in North Minneapolis right now. But it would essentially look the same, I believe, in Roseville. I'm happy to send you more information or connect you to the person that is
Perfect.
helping to make that decision.
Do you know the timing on that decision-making?
I know it's 2024. I asked about that specifically, that it would be rolled out in 2024.
Well, I'm sure you will let us know if we make the cut.
You know it.
All right. All right. Other questions or comments for Mr. Lindstrom? Right.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, and hopefully we can fill out the Land Use Advisory Committee with more members.
Some
'cause I know we've
vacancies,
been-
and I'm glad you mentioned that because keep an eye out for Met Council emails where it requests you to serve on some advisory committee. Just like you folks rely on your residents to serve on your various commissions, we rely on folks to serve on our various commissions, like Mayor Rowe serves on the Land Use Advisory Commission. But we have the Transportation Advisory Board, which makes transit and transportation decisions for our region. It gets $250 million every other year to decide where those funds should go. A new bridge and widening a lane, transit projects, active living type projects, pedestrian projects, bike projects. So it's super important, and there's a good number of, in fact, it has to be, a majority has to be from elected officials. So occasionally we have openings there. So yeah, and if you do see one of those openings and you're like, what is this board all about? Please ask me about it and I'll fill you in.
Thank you again for being here and for all the work that the Met Council does and helping to connect people with those services that are provided.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Great. Next on our agenda, we have consideration of the application from the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association for their renewal of their permit for a water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. And we have our Deputy Police Chief, Joe Adams, here with us this evening to introduce this item for our annual consideration. That's always a sign that spring is around the corner when we, there's two things. It's the Groundhog's Day and it's the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association ski course approval. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Adams to reintroduce us to this item.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I'm here to present the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association's request to have a permit renewal for the water ski slalom course on Lake Owasso. Just as a reminder, the actual permit is issued by Ramsey County. With that said, in 1997, the Roseville City Council established a policy allowing for public comment anytime there was a permit involving a Roseville lake. For that reason, the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association submitted a written request seeking approval from the city to apply for a permit through Ramsey County for the slalom course. It will be in the same location that it has been for over 50 years and has no financial impacts on the city. They did supply a certificate of insurance, and it is staff's recommendation to approve their request so they may move forward with the permit application through Ramsey County.
right, thank you, Chief. Are there questions for staff on this item? All right. This is a public hearing opportunity, so this is a chance for members of the public to speak to this request that is before us this evening. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak in support of or in opposition to the city concurring with the Boating Association going to Ramsey County for their approval? Is there anyone here to speak to this item? Right, seeing no one, then we'll close the opportunity for public comment, and we've got the request before us. Is there a motion from the council? Councilmember
I'll
Atten?
move approval of their request.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Atten, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve that request for the Lake Owasso Safe Boating Association to apply for their slalom ski course on Lake Owasso with Ramsey County. Discussion of the motion.
No, thank you.
Maker, seconder.
It's quite a new program, so it's very, we're just putting our necks out here to approve this. But no further comment.
If there's no further discussion, we've got the motion before us to grant that approval. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that is approved again for this year. And once again, safe boating and have fun this summer. Assuming that Ramsey County approves.
I assume, yes.
Yes. With that, then, that brings us to another public hearing this evening. We've got a public hearing related to a on-sale liquor license. And I'll turn it over to Rebecca Olson, our Assistant City Manager, to introduce this item this evening. Ms. Olson.
Thank you, Mayor Council. As you stated, under City Code, a public hearing is required when considering approval of a liquor license. Staff has received an application from Quay's Kitchen for an on-sale liquor license with Sunday sales with an outside endorsement. They are located at 1490 County Road B West. The applicant has met all the requirements set forth in the code and paid the correct fees, and staff is recommending approval of the license.
All right, thank you, Ms. Olson. Are there questions for staff on this requested license? And this is a new license request, correct? Not a transfer? Or,
correct.
Okay, got it. Right. If there's no questions, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak either in support of or in opposition to the granting of this license for Quay? Feel free to come up to the table and introduce yourself.
Chef Eric, come on. Hello, everybody. My name is Eric. Quay's Kitchen, or it's going to be called Quay's, is going to be I'm calling it more of a fine casual restaurant. So, fine dining aspects, as well as a casual restaurant. I think people deserve a restaurant that has really, really good food, really good hospitality, but not crush your wallet. So, with my training in that background, but also with the casual aspect of my mom, Quay's is my mom. Her 35 years at Kwang Restaurant, one of the biggest Vietnamese restaurants in Minnesota and in the nation. The casual, aspect of people come in every day and they say hi to her and they know her and she knows them is something I really admire and honestly am jealous of. So that is something I want to bring to Roseville. I just wanted to say hello. And the liquor license would help me build further on that hospitality and fine dining aspect, because I do want to bring, I think, a new level of culinary, like a new culinary level to Roseville and to the Twin Cities. Everywhere it's sort of either in Minneapolis or honestly a little bit in St. Paul, but mostly Minneapolis, and nobody's really talking about the suburbs. So I'd love to bring some new eyes to Roseville.
We appreciate that.
We look forward to that.
And one of the things you are seeking is the outdoor sales endorsement, so I'm imagining you're going to have a nice outdoor space
Yes.
in the summertime.
Yes, summertime. By the time we're open, we'll be a massive, massive restaurant. I mean, probably close to 120 seats, 40 seats outside. Come in, enjoy the weather, enjoy the food. It's gonna be a good time. We'll have everything you could want. We're gonna try to do it all: desserts, mocktails, cocktails, beer and wine. I mean, from anything you could think of, you let me know. I'll have suggestions at the restaurant as well. Love to hear everybody's opinions.
All right, well, thank you. And of course, you may note on our agenda this evening, we have a number of compliance check related issues
Yes.
related to our liquor and tobacco licenses. And so this is kind of an object lesson to make sure that you are diligent about your checking of IDs and following the program established by the city in that regard. So you get to see that in action this evening. But thank you for coming forward and taking that risk with this venture. And hopefully we'll get you your approval this evening, and you can move on from there.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this application this evening?
His prop.
They don't let you back in the Met Council without your wastewater, right? Yes. It was a cameo appearance by Mr. Lindstrom again. With that, we've got the request before us to approve this liquor license as well as the outdoor sales endorsement. Is there a motion from the council?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Discussion on the motion. Councilmember Groff is the maker.
I look forward to eating that food. It sounds good. I didn't have much for supper. It sounds
Yeah, you're not open right now.
Not yet.
Not quite.
Unfortunately, no.
All right, seconder.
I appreciate, I'm glad there won't be an empty space there for a long period of time, and I look forward to, I live walking distance from there, so I'm excited to see what you bring to the neighborhood. Thank you. And thanks for believing in the neighborhood. We really appreciate your trust in the suburbs, and hopefully you'll feel that it was well placed.
Right, other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we've got the motion before us then to approve the license as well as the outdoor sales endorsement. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and it is approved. Thank you and good luck to you. And if you're open on Mondays for lunch, you may even see Mr. Trudgeon and I there once or twice. We do try to get around to all the places in the community. All right, with that, we've got another business item here related to, I guess, we had our hearing at the Planning Commission in this case, but it's certainly an opportunity for the council to consider approval of this request, and so I'll turn it over to our city planner, Thomas Paschke, to introduce this item.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. This is a request by Troy's Automotive LLC to seek a text amendment to Table 1005-01, Table of Uses in support of motor vehicle repair, auto body shop as a conditional use in the neighborhood business district. As indicated, this item went to the Planning Commission on January 3rd. It was unanimously recommended for approval. What's necessitating this change is Troy of Troy's Auto Care. For those who aren't aware, it's at the northwest corner of County Road B and Hamlin Avenue. He purchased the property from, I believe it was Dave's Roseville Auto. It had been there since, I think, 1959 is when it started. One time it was a permitted use. Through zoning changes and other things, it became a prohibited or non-permitted use currently under the code. And for him to be able to grow his business and specifically add on to have another service bay or two requires either a rezoning or a text amendment. And staff felt that the more appropriate option and more palatable option was to go through the text amendment and seek a conditional use to be able to move forward with that. And that is the request you have before you this evening, is to support the text change from an NP to a C in our table. And I believe you have the ordinance that would show it as simple as this, if I could get the overhead. And I conclude my presentation, open up to your questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Paschke. In the vote at the Planning Commission, that was a unanimous vote, as I seem to recall?
Correct.
All right, thank you. Questions for Mr. Paschke on this request? Councilman Bratton?
What kind of, and this is in the newspaper today, what kind of parking space requirements do we have in this zone that might be pertinent to this kind of business?
Well, I think the requirements are related to use in the respect of, number of vehicles that you're servicing and thing. I don't know that there's anything specific for a service station, if you will, highlighted in our code related to parking of vehicles and things. I think one of the things that he would like to do is be able to get some of the vehicles that are outside that are worked on periodically inside to get them to be serviced a little quicker and out of there. And some of this was precipitated by some outdoor work that was going on that wasn't allowed by the code that he had to remove, and we discussed this as an opportunity for him to move forward with being able to service additional vehicles.
we have rules around storing inoperable vehicles,
Correct.
Bill, correct? So, okay.
Other questions? Councilmember Strawn?
I was curious to know how we were able to transfer ownership of a property when it was a non-permitted use.
Ownership continues, so it's considered a non-conforming use. It can continue in perpetuity until it is not used for, I believe it's up to 365 days or a year. Once that ends, then it can't continue. You have to follow the current rules. So it has never ceased being a service station. And so he's allowed to continue it that way, no different than, I think it's the service station that's Kitty Corner that's also got the same zoning.
Oh, okay. And then as far as, wondering, as far as future expansion, is that possible within the zoning in the area?
It is. I mean, there might be a variance that would have to be granted, given these properties were developed many years ago. They don't follow the same setback requirements and some of the other rules and regulations that we may have on the books today, because our code and ordinances change over the last, 5 decades, if you will. So some of that might occur, and if this is granted, you'd have to go through the conditional use process as well for us to review it against those criteria for any potential impacts and things, and then obviously add conditions to address that in the future, those things that we feel are appropriate or necessary. But it's not, I mean, it's possible that a site could utilize this and not require variances and things as well, but these are very small neighborhood-sized lots, so the chances of needing a variance is fairly certain in some cases.
Okay.
Councilmember Groff?
So if I'm understanding it right, this is a way to allow a small business to continue in Roseville, giving
This
some,
business, yep.
giving some restrictions that would probably be in place, but the C would allow that, and the variance would allow them to be, us to be a little bit flexible
That is
with the
correct.
business. Thank you.
And because it's a conditional use, as you noted, what we're considering this evening is the change to the code to allow a conditional use to be applied for and considered. This action this evening doesn't automatically make the use able to be continued without that additional step,
That is
other than
correct.
as a non-conforming use.
Troy's aware of that. We talked about a two-step process and putting together a plan, obviously, because then that's the item that you review against the conditional use and the site and many other factors. So yes, the first step in a two-step process.
Got it. So presumably an application would be forthcoming, and then that would also be considered, I believe, by the planning commission first with the hearing for a conditional use, or does that just come right to the
It
council?
may go to the variance board and to the.
Depending on what's applied for?
Correct, yep.
Got
And
it,
to
okay.
the planning commission and then on to the city council.
All right, and that's the point where conditions can be added and things can be looked at in relation to impacts on the surrounding
Correct.
neighborhood and properties, so, okay, thank you. Great, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this? Certainly, if Mr. Miller wants to speak to it, it's optional at this point, but feel free to do so, and then we'll certainly allow for other public comment as well.
I always do well in front of large groups, but
Hello and welcome.
Mayor Rowe, thank you, and City Council, thank you for hearing what Thomas Paschke had to say and what I'm about to say. My wife said that this is the best place on earth to live. It's located centrally between, it's on 36, so it's centrally located between St. Paul and Minneapolis. It's the best place to live on earth. There's parks and all these things. I grew up on the Lower East Side of St. Paul, so she convinced me to move to Roseville to carry on her tradition with her parents. And the Purple House, that's kind of like a well-known place. For many times I would drive by Dave's Roseville Auto Care, and it looked like it was just kind of like slowing down. It's just like, I love this little shop, and I love, the things that I feel like it represents, and I want to bring life back to this. So I worked at the same place for 25 years, and I came home and I told my wife, I said, Dave approached me about this opportunity. I want to buy this place. And she's like, you must be having a midlife crisis because you wanna buy a gas station. I'm looking at a place that, is a really good job for 25 years, and I said, well, I really believe in the opportunity of this to be able to live and work in my community. So she got behind it and she loves Roseville, so we did that. 2019, then COVID hit. So our vision early on was, to be able to create joy to the community because we live here, we work here. And all the people that worked for me lives in the community and grew up there. And so we wanted to stay true to that. And it was just like, what is, COVID was obviously a very scary thing to a lot of people. But one great thing that happened out of that was that I decided I've got to do something to create this joy that I said that our vision was going to be all about. So I started decorating, and still I tried to do the best I could to create outreach in the community. And it just gave back tenfold to me, obviously. I got to know more and more about, constituents, my neighbors, and I'm just a raving fan of Roseville. And, like Thomas had said, 1959, that's, when Dave's was established, and it's a two-bay shop, and it's one of the original places in our community. And I want to be able to continue to be able to provide, something different in the community that you would normally see outside of, just the average thing. We have a two-bay shop. Most shops in our neighborhood are 3 to 6 bays. Outside of my neighbor across the street from me, he's got a 2-bay shop. I think everybody is, have 3 to 6 bays. So in order for us to stay relevant, in order for us to be able to do more in our community, I feel like, help, neighbors get to work, and, things have changed. We have a lot more, population in the community, and we have a lot less shops. So we want to be able to continue and grow and do more in our community, and that we're proud of.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Any questions for the applicant from the council? All right. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Let you off the hook easy here. Is there anyone else from the public who wishes to speak to this proposed amendment to our code to allow a conditional approval for the repair of automobiles in this formerly neighborhood business district? All right, seeing no one, we'll close the opportunity for public comment then. Move to council consideration. We've got the request before us. I believe this would actually be an ordinance, correct? So we've got a copy of that, and so the action would be to move to either approve the ordinance or some other action.
Motion to approve the ordinance.
It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve that ordinance, making the amendment to the MU-1 district under motor vehicle repair auto body shop from not permitted to a conditional type of approval. Discussion of the motion. As the maker of the motion, Councilmember Strawn.
Thank you. I think it's very important to us to have an element or a way that we can take a business that's been in the neighborhood for so long to continue in the neighborhood. Not only is Troy a good neighbor, but he's a good neighbor. He is helping support various programs in Roseville. He really puts back, and it's not just empty words. If you drive by, you notice that he's very seasonally decorating. Kids are always welcome. My daughter got in a car accident. I said, how do we get a car? And he knew somebody who knew somebody. And suddenly, in a market when you can't find cars, we had a car to look at that wasn't related, but it was a connection. Troy really cares about what he does, and I think even if it weren't Troy, this is an important piece to keep our history as a city as we get bigger and bigger, that we don't only find a space for the biggest of the big organizations, but we make sure we give an opportunity for small shops to stay operable.
Right. And as the secretary, Councilmember Groff, any comments?
Well, I would certainly agree with all that, and I've heard, I do not know Troy, but I've heard about him from many people in the community. But I think the other reason to do this is to give flexibility to our code. That's what it's there for, is to make things work for our businesses and make them work in a way that's good for the community and the neighborhood. And that's what I think we're doing, so that's why I support this.
Right, thank you. Other discussion on the motion? Councilmember Ratten?
I would just note, I agree with these things. It is fun when you have decorated in different ways. That's great, and I appreciate you have non-oxygenated gas for my small engines.
None of these factors are
No,
influencing our
nothing to do with
decision-making,
code.
of course, this evening, but, and I would just add that I know that, you know, from a historical perspective, certainly not permitted was the code for this type of use in these smaller sort of neighborhood node type locations. And I think back to council meetings many, many years ago. I think even before I was on the council, when city council members would discuss concerns about, you know, vehicles on the site and sort of the cleanliness or the nuisance to the neighborhood type aspects. And so that's certainly something that I keep in the back of my mind as I think about this. But I think we're not going from not permitted to pretty much permitted. We're going to conditional, which is an opportunity to look at individual cases, understand impacts, and try to put conditions in place to help mitigate those. And so that's why I'm supportive of this change. Ooh, I did have one question for staff very quickly. I know we're in the middle of discussing the motion. So a conditional use goes with the site, so new ownership and, you know, a new operation down the road would still have this conditional use in place. If the site is enlarged by, say, the purchase of an adjacent property or something like that, does that require a new consideration because of the fact that it's expanding onto a larger footprint?
That's a good question, maybe for the attorney to answer.
Okay. Do you have a sense of that?
Well, the expanded use would not be non-conforming, so they would need to perhaps get a rezoning on that adjoining lot, whatever that way. It would take, that lot would need to come into conformity because the use is established as, you know, legal non-conforming, but that wouldn't apply. It doesn't apply to expansions, and it doesn't apply to, you know,
So it only
the
applies to
neighboring
that
property.
particular parcel, basically. Okay, I appreciate that. Because what I was thinking is that somebody could buy an adjacent property and then suddenly they're a 6-bay operation when they were approved to be a 3-bay, those types of things, which can change impacts on the neighborhood. So I just wanted to make sure sort of that there was something in place to kind of continue to be a check on that. So I appreciate that answer, and that doesn't change my support for going forward with this. So thank you again. With that, if there's no further discussion, we've got the motion before us to adopt this ordinance, changing, making a text change to our zoning code to allow motor vehicle repair auto body shop as a conditional use in the MU1 district. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that ordinance is approved. No ordinance summary is requested because it's a very brief ordinance, so we'll move right on then. We move into a number of considerations of presumptive penalties for various compliance check failures for establishments in our community. And we've got a series of them this evening, so we'll jump right in. We've got our Deputy Chief Joe Adams back with us, and he will begin with the first case, which is a case for a tobacco compliance violation for Cub Foods, and I'll turn it over to Chief Adams again.
Mayor, Council, thank you again. Each year, the Roseville Police Department conducts 2 alcohol and 2 tobacco compliance checks of all license holders. In 2023, last year, the first round of checks were completed in July. The second round, which we're here for today, was completed in November of 2023. Due to the total number of failures, I'll provide a brief summary of each, followed by staff recommendations. If present, we can then give the businesses an opportunity to speak. But without further ado, the first, as Mayor had mentioned, is Cub Foods on Larpenter. On November 11th, 2023, a compliance checker went to Cub Foods to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker asked and received a pack of cigarettes from the customer service counter. The employee did check identification but sold the cigarettes to our checker anyhow. The employee was issued a citation, which has since been paid. This is Cub Foods' second violation at that location within 36 months, the first being December 17th of 2022. It's staff's recommendation for the council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for tobacco license holders for a second violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a 3-day tobacco license suspension.
All right, thank you, Chief. Are there questions for staff on this particular incident? Right, do we have a representative from Cub Foods here this evening who may wish to speak as to this? Doesn't appear to be the case. Does anyone from the public wish to speak to this particular case this evening? Seeing no one, then we'll move to council consideration. We've got the request before us to administer the presumptive penalty as was noted in the staff report for this second violation within 36 months.
So moved. Staff recommendation.
Right,
Second.
it's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff to authorize that presumptive penalty, which once again is a $2,000 fine and a 3-day suspension of the tobacco sales license. Discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously and that penalty is authorized. That brings us to the second case as relates to Keys Cafe. Chief.
November 11th, 2023, a compliance checker went to Keys Cafe to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer from their server. An employee checked the ID but proceeded to serve the alcohol to the checker. This is Keys' second violation within 36 months. The first was on December 28th of 2021. The server was issued a citation which has since been paid. Keys management later provided the necessary training documentation to PD staff. It's staff's recommendation for the city council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for on-sale alcohol license holders for a second violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a 5-day alcohol license suspension.
All right, thank you, Chief. Are there questions for staff on this particular case? All right, is a representative of Keys with us this evening? Does not appear to be the case. Anyone from the public who wishes to speak as to this case? All right, seeing no one, then we'll proceed to council consideration. We've got the request before us to authorize the issuance of the presumptive penalty, once again, the $2,000 fine and the 5-day suspension for this second violation within 36 months.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Etten to administer the presumptive penalty as outlined. Discussion on the motion.
I just want to mention one
Councilmember
thing, and
Groff?
I know that you've mentioned it in the report, is that driver's licenses for underage are formatted a different way, so it's very obvious. So I think hopefully the training will take hold. We're all hoping that anyway.
Maybe the 5-day suspension will help
Might,
jog.
yeah, exactly.
All right. With that, we've got the motion before us to administer that presumptive penalty for Keys. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. That penalty is authorized. Next, we have a case, once again, for a alcohol compliance check for Portillo's. Chief Adams.
November 11th, 2023, a compliance checker went to Portillo's to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer from the server at the counter. The employee checked ID, but proceeded to serve the alcohol to the checker. The server was issued a citation, which has since been paid. Portillo's management later provided the necessary training documentation to PD staff. It's staff's recommendation for council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to code for on-sale alcohol license holders for a first violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $1,000 and a 1-day alcohol suspension.
All right, so I notice in the requested council action, it does say $2,000, but you're saying that for the first violation, it is $1,000.
I do apologize, I'll have to research that quick.
I think it's 2,000 now.
It is 2,000, we changed from 1 to 2,000, okay.
Yeah, we changed.
Okay, very good. I did want to clarify that, so we made sure we didn't go the wrong path here.
Yeah.
All right, questions for staff on the Portillo's case? All right, is there a representative for Portillo's this evening with us that wishes to speak as to this case?
Yes.
Feel free to come up and have a seat at the table. And if you could introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Brian Alcaraz. I'm the acting general manager for both the Portillo's in Roseville and Woodbury. Thank you for hearing us out. So I recognize that serving alcohol is a privilege and not a right. Only about 1% of our Portillo's restaurants, our sales are from alcohol. We hold 80 liquor licenses in 9 states. We also ensure that training is provided to all team members who serve alcohol. We have team members that sign off on the City of Roseville manager and server training. Our team members complete the Minnesota Serve Safe Alcohol Training online course and exam. For example, our team member, Michael Gunderson, he actually completed the class on November 4th, 2023. This is before we failed the liquor sting. Unfortunately, Michael was in a little bit of a stressful position, still no excuse. Since the violation, Michael has completed the Minnesota Serve Safe Alcohol Training course on January 19th, 2024. So we do make sure that everyone is licensed to pour beer. We take it very serious. I know this is our first offense and, we're not proud of that. But I just wanted you guys to put a face on it and hear me out. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
you.
Appreciate you being here this evening.
No problem.
All right, and is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular case this evening? It's seeing no one then, we have the request before us, once again, for the first violation within 36 months. It's a one-day suspension along with the $2,000 fine. Is there a motion from the council?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Ratten, to administer the presumptive penalty as outlined. Discussion on the motion?
Nope.
Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously, and that presumptive penalty is authorized. That brings us to our next case, which is another alcohol compliance failure, and this is at Axel's at Doubletree. Chief Adams.
On November 11th, 2023, compliance checker went to Axel's to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer from the server. The employee checked the ID but proceeded to serve the alcohol to the checker. The server was issued a citation, which has since been paid. Axel's and Doubletree management later provided the necessary training documentation to PD staff. It's staff's recommendation for the council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for on-sale alcohol license holders for the first violation, which is mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a one-day alcohol license suspension.
All right, thank you, Chief. Questions for staff on this case? All right, do we have a representative of Axel's with us this evening who wishes to speak? Feel free to come up and introduce yourself. Welcome.
Good evening. Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Christopher Zarek. I'm the general manager of the Doubletree by Hilton Roseville, as well as the Axel's restaurant, which we own and operate. There's no such excuse that can ever be made. We take great pride in being outstanding partners and responsible operators of our business, and certainly with this person, this bartender did was wrong and inappropriate. We did take action with that person and terminated their employment for breaching our policy and training practices. And we certainly hope that you'll take that in light of those actions and understand that we certainly will not take that lightly and ensure that that doesn't happen again. We've continued to do training just even with 30 of our team members just 2 days ago as well.
Thank you for being here this evening. Appreciate that. Are there questions from the council for the representative from Axel's? Thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this case this evening? It's seeing no one. We'll proceed to council consideration. We've got the request before us to authorize the presumptive penalty of the $2,000 fine and the one-day suspension for this first violation within 36 months.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's moved by Councilmember Groff, seconded by Councilmember Strawn. Any discussion on the motion?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of authorizing that presumptive penalty signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. And that penalty is authorized. That brings us then to our next case, which is another alcohol violation. This is for Lee Sue's Thai. Chief Adams.
November 11th, 2023, compliance checker went to Lisu's Thai Cuisine to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer from a server. The employee did not check ID and proceeded to serve the alcohol to the checker. The server was issued a citation, which has since been paid. Lisu's management later provided the necessary training and documentation to PD staff. It is staff's recommendation for council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for on-sale alcohol license holders for the first violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a one-day alcohol license suspension.
All right, thank you. Are there questions for staff on this case? All right, do we have a representative from Lee Sue's Thai with us this evening who wishes to speak to this case? Does not appear to be the case. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this particular case? Seeing no one, we'll proceed to council consideration. We've got the request before us once again to authorize the issuance of the mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 with the 1-day suspension for a first violation.
So moved.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, second by Councilmember Etten. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that penalty is authorized. That brings us to our next case, which is also an alcohol compliance violation. This is for Courtyard by Marriott. Chief.
November 11th, 2023, compliance checker went to the Courtyard by Marriott to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer. The employee who was working the front desk did not ask for ID and proceeded to serve the alcohol to the checker. The employee was issued a citation, which has since been paid. Courtyard by Marriott management later provided the necessary training, documentation to PD staff. Its staff's recommendation for council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for on-sale license holders for the first violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a 1-day alcohol license suspension. And I will note that the Courtyard has been very responsive and in communication with me. The management reached out today to let us know that due to an illness, they would not be able to attend.
Right, thank you. All right, do we have questions from the council on this case? All right, and we know there's not a representative. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this case this evening? All right, seeing no one, we'll move to council consideration. We've got the request before us to authorize the administration of the mandatory minimum penalty for the first violation on an alcohol compliance failure of $2,000 with the 1-day suspension.
Move to authorize the penalty.
Second.
All right, moved by Councilmember Groff, second by Councilmember Strawn. Discussion on that motion. Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. That penalty is authorized. And then finally, our final alcohol compliance check case this evening is for the Shake Shack. And I'll turn it over to Chief Adams again.
Yes, on November 11th, again, compliance checker went to Shake Shack to conduct a compliance check. While there, the compliance checker ordered a beer from a server. The employee checked ID but proceeded to serve alcohol to our checker. The server was issued a citation, which has since been paid. Shake Shack management later provided necessary training documentation to PD staff while speaking with the community action team, who had to go out on a few different occasions to retrieve that. It's staff's recommendation for the council to issue and administer the presumptive penalty pursuant to city code for on-sale alcohol license holders for the first violation, which is a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,000 and a 1-day alcohol license suspension.
All right, thank you again, Chief. Are there questions from the council? All right, and is there a representative of Shake Shack here this evening? Oh, welcome. If you could introduce yourself.
Thank you. I am Chris Gross. I am the area director for Shake Shack in Minnesota. We obviously, we take service of alcohol very seriously, and clearly made a serious error in this instance. Since that time, we have taken the time to retrain the team and continue to reinforce those trainings through our daily meetings with the team. We have, of course, had a first violation. I would not like to come back and do this a second time for obvious reasons. So thank you for allowing me to speak.
Appreciate that.
Thanks very much.
Questions for the applicant, for the representative of the restaurant? Right. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this case this evening? Right. Is there a motion from the council as it relates to the presumptive penalty for this first violation?
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Etten, seconded by Councilmember Groff to authorize issuance of that presumptive penalty. Any discussion on the motion? I'm going to take the opportunity, because this is the final one before us this evening, to note that we did have a number of first-time violations, despite having a couple of second-time violations, and so that is, I guess, sort of a silver lining in this dark cloud of compliance failures. I appreciated the comments, actually, from Mr. Gross at the last case here about that reinforcement on a daily basis. It seems to me fairly clear that the training is good and important. The documentation of all that is good and important, but that reinforcement, I think, to put everybody in the mindset on a daily basis at the start of their shift or whatever it takes to make sure that they are thinking about checking those IDs. And as Councilmember Groff said, I mean, there's no question in Minnesota that an underage ID is clearly an underage ID. You know, it says under 21 on it. It's one format versus the other. So it's really difficult for somebody to make a misstep there if they check the ID. We did have a couple of cases where people didn't check the ID, so we've got to work on that as well. Our goal here in this program is not to collect a lot of dollars through fines and to make life difficult for businesses. Our goal here is to have nobody coming before us for compliance check failures. And so we really strongly encourage all of our license holders in Roseville, both on tobacco and alcohol, to take this as seriously as we do as a city and as some of the representatives here this evening mentioned that they do. And we look forward to not seeing any of our license holders before the city council on the next round of compliance checks. Councilmember Strawn.
I would just ask that the staff, city staff, also make sure that all of the alcohol compliance check information that goes out to the businesses is consistent with our new fee structure that went into effect last year. That was a little bit confusing last time, but I still see some typos with the old fee rate, the old rate there, and so just think it's fair to the businesses to have that be consistent and accurate.
Great point, Councilmember Strawn, and the communication's actually going out very soon. And as you noted, the fee structure changed in the middle of a compliance check on the last time, which caused a little bit of the miscommunication in that aspect. So we'll absolutely make sure that is.
Yeah, thank you. I just know that anything that coming out from the Roseville department reflects the prior fee schedule that from what's presented in our materials. So, thank you.
Councilmember Grant.
And I would say to the businesses, you know, when you do get these notices, I know you get a lot of mail, we all, you know, but please, you know, post them somewhere where your employees can see it or something so that they are reminded that we do this every year. We try to be really fair with everybody. And the department really does try to notify you and work with you on things. So, so let's all work together to reduce this number. That's our goal, as the mayor said.
And we don't want to get to a point where we issue, in addition to the presumptive penalty, we don't want to be issuing a scarlet letter to all of our establishments that they have to publicly post, although maybe we should. That might be a reminder.
If it would work.
The other thing I just wanted to note too, this was something that the city manager brought to my attention in a conversation not too long ago, is that we don't use compliance checkers who are like, you know, 20 and a half.
No.
And look 40. We use people that are well under 21 and I think even under 18 usually. So that's one aspect of it. We're not trying to track people. We're trying to make sure that people are being compliant. And so I just wanted to note that as well. Yeah. Right. With that, we do have the motion before us on this final case for Shake Shack to authorize issuance of the presumptive penalty, $2,000 fine and a 1-day suspension. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. That authorization is approved. Thank you again, Chief. And as we said to the representatives of the restaurants, we really prefer not to have these cases come before us as much as we like visiting with you.
We only want to see you when we come in to eat.
Right.
Yes.
All right, with that, then we'll proceed to our next item, which is also public safety related. And we have our Chief of Police with us this evening, Erica Scheider, our award-winning Chief of Police.
Yes.
Recognized by her officers for her leadership this past week at the awards ceremony in the public safety area. So we it certainly was a meaningful event all around. We had members of the public who received received commendation for their bravery and actions in public safety, and certainly a number of officers, a record number of Medal of Honor recipients this time around, as well as I mentioned, the chief's recognition from her own staff, unsolicited. So I wanted to recognize that publicly this evening and thank the chief. And with that, we'll proceed to this particular case, which is looking at a joint powers agreement related to the Minnesota BCA Violent Crime Reduction Unit. Chief.
Great, thank you. I don't have a formal presentation. I'm just gonna kind of walk through what the proposal is, and then I'm certainly available to answer any questions that you have. I'll kind of start with the why. In the last couple of years, Minnesota really has seen a dramatic increase in violent crime, and that really correlated with the pandemic and then some of the civil unrest after that. 2021, it was concerning statewide. This isn't just Roseville, but statewide, we definitely saw an increase in violent crime. Thankfully, in 2022, those numbers did just start to come down, but they're still much higher than what we saw back before the pandemic. We don't have the 2023 numbers out, and have some issues right now throughout Ramsey County with our vendor getting some of those stats, so I don't have 2023 numbers. It does look like they're still trending a little bit downward, but we're still concerned that they haven't returned to pre-pandemic levels. And any violent crime definitely impacts not only our victims, but our entire communities. That's kind of what brought us to looking at this violent crime. During the 2023 legislative session, this was something that lawmakers really began to prioritize and look for solutions. And they ended up providing significant financial resources to fund a violent crime reduction support initiative that's operated out of the Department of Public Safety and the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And one part of that is to create partnerships with metro agencies to really, rather than having everyone in their own silo investigating these cases, to really be able to bring people together. What we often find with violent crime, for example, if it was a carjacking at Roseville, we're quickly finding out these may be the same suspects that Bloomington is also looking at, or that Minnetonka may also have a similar case. So the idea is to bring people together and to build those relationships to better solve these crimes and be able to provide better resources to our victims. So the proposal was approved. The legislature designated specific money that would go to help support this initiative. And in December 2023, I was very excited to learn that Roseville was chosen as one of the participating agencies. So we were invited to be part of this task force. It was not a grant, so it wasn't something that we applied. They just kind of looked at trying to balance East and West Metro and different size agencies as part of this task force. There's 3 additional Ramsey County agencies that were also invited to participate. And basically this initiative would combine the BCA agents, analysts, and other support to really address these violent crimes. The idea would be we would have a Roseville designated officer serving as part of this group. They still would be responsible for investigating Roseville crimes, but they now would have those silos, less of those silos, and they'd be able to partner with the relationships that they've already built. Probably the most exciting part of this is we'd be eligible to receive full reimbursement for that employee, and that includes overtime, training, vehicle, and all the equipment. It is a 3-year right now legislative funding source. Our hope is that with success that this would be extended beyond that 3 years. The Roseville Police Department would look to assign an experienced officer or detective. This is not an entry-level position by any means. That would increase our sworn strength by 1 officer, which would be funded through this initiative for that 3 years. We've talked about if this wasn't extended beyond the 3 years, then we would look through attrition to go back to our sworn strength where we're at. There is no requirement for the city to extend this beyond the funding at the end of the 3 years. Obviously, if it's successful, we'd look for other funding sources or other grants to continue it. And then the city attorney did review the contract and did not have any concerns. And here to answer any questions you might have about it.
All right, thank you, Chief. Appreciate that. Are there questions from the council related to this item? Councilmember Atten?
I have a few questions. So, you mentioned that this officer that would be appointed to the task force would continue doing work in Roseville with the office here?
So, similar to how we do other, even like at the SROs, their office here a lot of times like in the morning and the afternoon, and then the bulk of their day, if they have other cases going on, would be based out of an office space in Maplewood is where they're looking, so close by.
Okay.
But really the expectation is they would be coming in, checking in, attending our investigative meetings, really staying focused on Roseville, but then also able to collaborate because so much of the violent crime is not just in Roseville. It's often people that don't live in Roseville that came into our community, and being able to have those relationships and collaborate with the other investigators would be really important. So to answer your question, they would be housed out of Roseville for some of the time, but then also would have an office space as part of this unit.
Okay, thank you. You and I had an opportunity to do a nice tour of the facilities for the police department last week. One of the things we talked about is getting vehicles. Are we gonna need another vehicle?
The vehicle is covered under the state funding, so they will supply a vehicle, which is pretty unique because that is often something we're left scrambling for, but
Yep.
this funding did allocate all of the expenses. It covers body worn cameras, any equipment to that the officer would need, which is very unique for this kind of opportunity.
Okay, last question. Do you have any concerns in the hiring climate that we have about backfilling?
You know, hiring right now is challenging, but certainly something I think we're doing pretty well right now. We've got a really good pipeline coming in. We've got a couple CSOs that are just in skills. We've got a couple more that'll be starting. And so, although there are challenges, I am confident we'll be able to backfill as we need to. Might take a little time. It's gonna take a lot of hard work as we look to recruit, but I really believe in this. This work is so important, especially for the victims of violent crime, that I think it's worth our efforts to work harder at recruitment to be able to backfill.
Right, thank you.
And just to clarify the question on the vehicles, so is it the funding comes from the state or the actual vehicle itself? I think that might relate to your question,
It might,
Councilmember
yeah.
Martin.
So the
Like,
state is
Is
actually,
there a squad car somewhere right now?
the state will actually be, it'll be their asset. They're in the process of, I'm not sure if it's a lease or if they're buying them, but they will actually own that. So Roseville will not be purchasing a vehicle for this.
All right, thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
Other questions for staff? All right. Do we have anyone from the public who wishes to speak to this item this evening? I believe our entire audience is staff members at this point. Not that we preclude staff members who may be members of the public as well from speaking, but I appreciate the information this evening, Chief. And not to get ahead of ourselves here a little bit, but I have had the opportunity to sit in on the Ramsey County discussions about violent crime on I think a bi-monthly basis. The chief is in on those, as well as the chiefs from a couple other communities and representatives, Ramsey County Sheriff, obviously the county attorney's office. And it has been interesting over this time to see, as was noted, some of the statistics are coming down, and I think, significantly, some of the ones that were very much in the headlines about carjackings and things like that, especially Ramsey County has made a lot of progress on, and I think that's through joint efforts.
Yep.
I think that's through, combining resources and talking to each other. And so to me, this is in that same vein. I also would note that I think that what came out of those or comes out of those discussions is that the people perpetrating these violent crimes are like sort of a consistent small percentage of the population who seems to always be involved. And so focusing the resources on those individuals and their connections in the community and trying to focus on that more intensively through this type of effort makes sense. So I certainly appreciate that it's out there. I think the legislature was helpful in providing it. So with that, we've got the request before us to authorize entering into this arrangement with the state, basically.
Move approval.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Atten, seconded by Councilmember Groff. Discussion on the motion is the maker, Councilmember Atten.
I appreciate the answers to some of the technical stuff, as well as your support for the big picture and how we can better serve our community and folks that don't just live in our community but affect our community, and work together to make a real change. So thank you.
All right, other discussion on the motion as the seconder, Councilmember Groff.
Yeah, this was helpful. I mean, reading through the packet, of course, I had an idea, but just hearing you explain that this is entirely covered and including the vehicle is really a positive for Roseville and the residents here. And crime does not stop at the borders. Where we have our borders, it's not, that isn't the way it works. So I think this working with communities around us is the way to go, and I fully support it.
All right, other discussion on the motion?
Nothing further.
All right, we've got the motion before us then to authorize proceeding with this program in partnership with the state as outlined. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that approval is made. Thank you again, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, that brings us to our final business item this evening, which is the item we added during consideration of the agenda, item 7M, and that is to discuss the advertisement appointment process related to the Human Rights Inclusion and Engagement Commission as it relates to the discussions we've had ongoing as to the code and the scope, duties, and functions for that commission as it relates to our ongoing recruitment of commission members for this next round of appointments. So with that, I'll maybe turn it over to Councilmember Atten, who had requested this item for further.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a
clarification.
little more to say this time. I was caught off guard the first time.
No, it was just to support adding it to the
Yeah,
agenda.
no, that makes sense. All right. As the beginning as of the beginning of January, we had 3 positions to fill in the HRAC. It's now likely we will need to replace more people. This commission has gone through massive turnover. At least 34 people have rolled off the commission in the last 5 years, so we've replaced more than 6 people a year on a 9-member commission. Things in their present form are not working. I don't feel that they're working. I don't think that members of the commission feel that they're working. So we need more time to sort out how to move forward with the work of the HRAC to ensure we are creating something that serves the city and the city council, while at the same time is something that is worthy of the investment of time and energy for the members of our community who are stepping forward. Because the language for the current HRIC is going to have to go through more substantial changes than we can do in a few weeks, I think it is unwise to ask people to make a commitment to something we cannot define at this time. Because of that, I feel like, so hold on, let me finish reading. The code language for other commissions is only being tweaked, and applications, interviews should be able to move forward easily, because there's not any really big change, but the larger changes for the HRAC, I think it feels that we should pause the efforts to recruit people to interview and pause any seating of members until we figure this out a little more ourselves.
Great, thank you. Thoughts from council members or questions for Councilmember Etten? Councilmember Strong?
I appreciate that thought, and I think that was clear in our roundtable discussion working group that there are many things, having known many people, including some of our council members who have been on that commission, it's not something that I want to see go away, but I want to make sure we're really respectful of the people who are involved. Councilmember Etten mentioned the participation of culture brokers who we had contracted several years ago in our preparation for a DEI manager within the city. And I think that someone like them or them itself would be a not unwise person to bring in as we try to fashion what this is and make sure that the group really reflects what we want them to, and what goals we have for that commission. And I think it's really important that we do take time to be intentional, because clearly it's like it's a waterfall right now, and we want to make sure that anyone who remains really feels validated in their time, and anyone who wants to come on knows fully. No one ever wants to get hired for the job where every department head just left and no one told them. And so I think it's really helpful for people to know, have a better sense of what they're getting into, but not undermining the importance of this group and what we want, how we want them to interact, but actually hopefully people seeing this as this is our affirmation that we want them to be strong and we want them to be really understanding of what they're here for. That saying we're going to take a pause doesn't imply that the goal is to disband or to move on in this, but really to be intentional, so that to reflect and respect all the 34 plus people who have been in the revolving door, and find a way that we can really see a grounding point and make sure that their time and the people involved are really respected and feel like this is time that they want to spend and well spent when they do so.
Other thoughts or comments, questions? Councilmember Groff?
Well, I would certainly agree with everything Councilmember Strawn has said. It is a volunteer position. You want people to feel needed, and you want them to feel vested in what they're doing. And that was what it seemed like we were struggling with when we had the group that were here last week or the week before?
Last week.
So I think one of the things I'd like to hear more from is the people who have left over that time, and maybe if they're willing to just give us a few thoughts on what they see could be more productive use of the commission or how their time is used. I also think culture brokers is a good reference point for us to touch base with them and just see if they have more of an analysis or more information for us. So I'm in favor of the pause at this time, and reevaluate.
Councilmember Strong?
I would like to know if we're going to set a time frame, because as often happens with people who procrastinate, like myself, if we don't put a time frame in which we are gonna make a decision, it's hard to know when we're coming back at it. So how long would we like to take a pause, and where will we hope to be regrouping from?
Councilmember Ratten.
Well, my motion would be around removing the post for advertising positions and not doing interviews in February. We're gonna talk about the other commissions and this commission theoretically on the 12th of February. And I think that we'll see kind of a little more, because right now, what I'm bringing up is just the pause. It's not
Okay.
any plan for changing. I just think that it's not the right thing to do to have, again, people being hired on for something they have no idea what they're jumping in for. So this is simply around that pause, and has nothing to do with the ongoing work of the commission at this point. And we would have to, maybe on that February 12th, get a little bigger understanding of where the council's at for changes. So I guess I don't have a specific determination, because I'm really just thinking about the pause for this round of interviews.
And that's only 2 weeks.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
right, that's part of it. I just wanted
We
to
may
get
have people already having applied for
Yeah.
the commission too,
Yep.
so, yeah.
Yep.
And just from a logistical point of view, we have our standard 2 times a year that we do appointments. So theoretically, if we don't do appointments to this commission on this round, unless we set something special up in the interim, it would be that September timeframe that we would have our next opportunity to look at adding to the commission at that point, if that's where we're at. So, but certainly we could set something up as part of our discussions that happen sooner as well.
Yep.
It's just a function of, how it all comes out when we have those further discussions. Is there a motion from the council, Councilmember Ratten?
So I would move to remove the post advertising positions for the HRAC, to not do interviews for that commission this February. As we make determinations on a clear purpose and direction, we can revisit engaging the community members, including those who may have applied already in this round.
All right. Second?
Second.
Second. So the motion is really specifically not to continue advertising and to not interview for those positions and make appointments for those positions.
That's my motion,
Okay.
yes.
All right. Wanted to try to get it down to the essence if I could. All right, with that, discussion of the motion, as the maker, anything else?
I've said plenty, thank
Okay,
you.
as a second or anything?
No, we've had a good discussion.
All right. With that, then we've got the motion before us. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and that part of our application process will be taken off as part of that pause. All right, with that, we've got consideration of city council minutes. We've got the minutes of our January 8th council meeting presented to us with comments that came back from council members, and that is for our consideration this evening. Are there any additional changes or corrections or a motion to approve?
Move approval of January 8th, 2024 council minutes.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Groff, second by Councilmember Ratten, to approve those minutes of January 8th as presented. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0, and those minutes are approved. That then brings us to our consent agenda this item. No items have been removed, so we'll ask City Manager Trudgeon to give us a brief description of those items this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 10A approves payments in the amount of $2,073,003.85. Agenda item 10B approves 2 temporary gambling permits, one for Whitetails Unlimited Twin Cities chapter for an event on March 9th at the Doubletree Hotel, and the other for the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49, for an event at the Midland Hills Country Club on July 15th, as well as approval as part of this action for a massage therapy establishment for Casinco Massage LLC at 2489 Rice Street. Item 10C approves the replacement of a Bryan anti-icing tank to assist our street crews in snow and ice removal, and a purchase of a new Zamboni to replace the 2013 Zamboni used at the Roseville Ice Arena. Item 10D approves the renewal of a consumption and display permit for Bent Distillery in the Roseville chapter of the Knights of Columbus. Item 10E approves a premises permit for the Roseville Youth Hockey Association to conduct lawful gambling activities at Buffalo Wild Wings. This will be Roseville Youth Hockey Association's 4th premises permit in Roseville, bringing the number of authorized permits in the city to 9 of the total 12 that are allowed. And as the City Council will recall, we just recently amended the ordinance to allow them to get that 4th license or premise permit. Item 10F approves submission of the city's pay equity report to the state. Item 10G approves memorandums of understanding with LALS unions representing police lieutenants and sergeants regarding the implementation of the new earned sick and safe time law. Item 10H authorizes staff to apply for the Minnesota Office of Justice Firearms Storage Grant. Item I approves entering into an agreement with Animal Humane Society based in Woodbury to impound stray animals. Item 10J approves entering into a contract with Flock to provide automated license plate readers at Rosedale. 100% of the cost of the use of the Flock cameras will be paid by Rosedale. Item 10K approves entering into a grant agreement with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety to purchase a second drone for use by the Roseville Police Department. Item 10L approves a resolution accepting the public improvements related to the Rose Place Townhomes Public Improvement Contract. Item 10M approves a resolution of support for the Rice Creek Watershed District state bonding request for improvements at Jones Lake in New Brighton that will help mitigate flooding issues in Roseville, New Brighton, and St. Anthony. And the last two items are approvals of short-term rental license. Item N is for 770 Heinel Drive, and item O is for 1901 Ryan Avenue. And that is the consent agenda.
All right, thank you, Mr. Trudgeon. Is there a motion with respect to the consent agenda this evening?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilmember Atten, seconded by Councilmember Groff to approve the consent agenda. Discussion on the motion? Councilmember Strawn.
I just have one question. Do we know what our current, I know we're no longer tracking, but I'd like to know what our current massage therapy license number is?
I'm sorry, Councilmember Strawn, offhand I don't know. We're probably at 26 or 27, I would guess. I think we approved another one at the start of the year. I think we were at 24, so probably about 26. I can get that number and send that out.
Okay, I think it'd be helpful for us to know as we pull the cap off of that and if there is a need for us to address that in the future.
Certainly.
Thank you.
All right, and I would just note thanks to Rosedale for their support of the Flock camera, and also note for members of the public who may be concerned that the cameras are specifically used to read license plates, which that information is then compared with existing information in law enforcement databases about, cars being involved in crimes, cars being stolen, and that sort of thing. And so it's not, it shouldn't be, I should say never it's not, but it's intended not to be something that people should be concerned about their privacy in relation to. As I understand it also, as was in the report, the information that is collected as part of the process is only maintained for something like 30 days and then is purged out of the system. So that's helpful for that part of the consideration. With that, we've got the motion before us to approve the consent items A through O. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously 4-0. Those items are approved or received. That then brings us to consideration of the future agendas, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Trudgeon for this item.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Our next meeting is February 12th. We have several items that you've talked at length before. One would be the Housing Trust Fund ordinance adoption, as well as the short-term rental ordinance. So those are ready to be approved in whole. So we will have them published on our city website and available, and certainly available for approval that night. We also want to, with our public works staff, talk about our streetlight policy that was alluded to earlier in the year. We also want to have a conversation about the budget process with really no goal beyond just a check-in to see how the process is going, maybe how we can improve it, what you all would like to have as information and material before we jump right into the process again, which is coming around the corner. And then two last things we want to get back to and wrap up the City Council and Commission rules of procedure. We had two items there about commissions bringing stuff forward and the use of Zoom technology or virtual meetings. And then alluded to also earlier by Councilmember Atten, the commission scope, duties, and functions, bringing back the work of the subcommittee to date, and then talk about next steps from there. So that is the 12th. Just a reminder, the 21st and 22nd is what we had scheduled for commission interviews. That might just be one night, depending on how many applicants we get, but just we'll provide information as we get closer to that date, what that's going to look like. Then in the February 26th City Council meeting, we do have Women's History Month, and then we have a bunch of public works city code updates. I think most of those are technical, but there are some policy issues with assessments and abatements for repairs we'll probably get into a little bit more deeper. We may have a few other items added depending on what pops up in the meantime. So that is the future agenda.
Great, thank you. Are there questions for Mr. Trudgeon on the future agenda items? Are there any council member initiated items for future meetings this evening? Any council reports or liaison information this evening?
Just a quick one on Northeast Youth and Family Services. We had our monthly meeting. Everything is progressing. Cities are getting their contracts in a very timely way, so everything is looking very good. Furnishing mental health care for families in that area and in Roseville.
And I would just report from the Access Commission, or 9 North, that they have hired a new municipal producer, which is an important position certainly for our meetings. And so that's good news. And then also they did hire a replacement for Pat Cook as the technical services manager over there. So that's also good that those positions were filled. I understand that for that, as well as another producer type position, they had many more applicants than the position. Obviously, there was just one of each of those positions, but it was like dozens of applicants, and even after kind of weeding out the typical not very qualified ones, they still had very significant numbers to work through. So that was maybe encouraging in the job market, at least in that specific technical area. So that's good, and I think both people that were hired are very good. So look forward to that. Any other reports, announcements, communications from council members? Otherwise, our final item this evening, other than adjournment, is the potential to do a closed session. I would note that under Minnesota state law, public bodies like the City Council, the City of Roseville, are required to hold our meetings in the open, in public, and accessible to public decision-making. So it is only with a few exceptions that we're allowed to close sessions. One of those exceptions relates to attorney-client privileged information, which is under Minnesota statutes 13D05 subdivision 3B, I believe it is, according to the agenda here this evening. And so that's why we are considering going to a closed session, because we are going to be having a discussion related to attorney-client privileged information with our attorney this evening. And this is in relation to the Westwood Village housing improvement area. So it would be appropriate at this time to have a motion from the council to go into a closed session. I would just note, for both the public's benefit as well as a reminder to our meeting producer, who was kind of queued up to this ahead of time, we will go into the closed session in another room. It will be off camera. We will, by state law, be required to reopen in order to then adjourn the meeting. However, we will not come back on camera for that. So this action will be the last thing that's recorded on camera this evening, just for folks at home. So with that, it would be appropriate, if council is so interested, to have a motion to move to a closed executive session under Minnesota statutes to receive or have discussions related to attorney-client privileged information.
So moved.
Second.
All right, it's been moved by Councilmember Strawn, seconded by Councilmember Groff. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes unanimously 4-0. We'll move then into closed executive session.